in the beginning of writing this book, y'all,
Yes.
I was so insecure about my ability to put words to paper, words to laptop. You know, Florida education school system, always blame them. But I feel insecure about how I form sentences. And so I let Tempest know that out the gate. So I'm like, hey, let me just tell you what I want the chapter to be.
Yep.
I want it to sound like me, though. Wheezy's chapter is going to sound like her. I want my chapters to sound like me. And so we spent like 4 hours together for our first writing session for the first chapter.
Yes.
We were like, let's get our flow start. We spent 4 hours together. I'm recording. She's recording. We have recording devices happening. And she's walking through how I want to chronologicalize this goddamn chapter.
Is that a word?
Chronologicalize? It is now. And so we spent 4 hours together. She's like, okay, I'm going to take all these audio notes. We know how we want to lay out this chapter, and I'm going to write.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send it to you to approve and edit. Y'all, she sent me the chapter, and I'm reading it. And I think I might have texted like, Tempest, can we talk real quick? And I don't know a nice way to say it.
No, we talked in person the next time.
Oh, did we talk in the next day? We had a two-day thing.
Yes.
So she comes the next day. I make sure, hey, what type of food do you want? Mediterranean, okay. I'm going to order our lunch.
Yeah, I got buttered up first.
And I said, and
I felt like I was
her,
dating.
And I look at her because I don't know how to say things very nicely. And I said, Tempest, I fucking hate it.
And then what did
It sounds terrible.
Yes.
I said, this is not how I like to read. Oh my God, it's awful. And y'all know what Tempest looked at me and said? Well, I wrote it how you sound.
It's true.
And I was like, I sound like a fucking dummy. I said, this reads so terribly.
I think it was also in your defense. We didn't know each other yet.
No.
And you were very, like, when we first started, I think all of us, like, everybody was like a little like, oh, we don't know each other yet.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on. Like, so I think there was also like a nervous energy about sharing your stories with me. So you were pausing a lot. You were pausing a lot. So I was like...
So, bitch, she ended all them sentences
So
with periods.
I had these tiny little sentences because that's how you were saying things to me.
That's funny.
And I was like, I hated it too. Though.
Like what? Give an example.
I hated it too. It was just like, and then we went here and this, period. And then this happened next, period. And I was like, that's how she's telling me these stories.
Mind you, so she's like, okay, let me see how you write.
Yes.
I need you to write this chapter. And I guess we started with our introduction.
Yep.
And I wrote my entire introduction beginning to end. And baby, I write with run-on sentences. If you want to, like, it just goes and flows. And I want all the adjectives, all the details to fit. I'll be like, comma, semicolon, comma. However, comma, like where I could.
There were a couple of times I had to be like, no.
She was like, bitch, this is 3 sentences.
You know
we
what's crazy about the stress of turning in chapters too? I kind of miss writing a little bit. Like,
you do?
There's this part of me that felt like it was super stressful.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm like, that was kind of fun. I know I need to talk about that one night that I was on my knees getting punished by Mandii. I kind of miss it.
I loved writing this book with you guys.
It was really fun.
It was really fun. It ended up being really fun.
I think it was dark times in the book. And so I guess we should explain how this book is
Can
made.
I say one more thing about Mandii and her writing then? So Mandii writes beautifully. She sends me this chapter.
15, 20 pages.
I looked at you and what did I say? I said, that's how I naturally write.
Yeah, she literally said that.
So what the hell?
Oh, no, she said, I don't know if we recorded anything else. Bitch, you're writing.
Yep.
And I'm going back
Recording
in.
is hard.
I really enjoyed writing.
Do you feel like, because we're both chatty and podcasters, do you feel like we were both wordy or one was wordier than the other?
I think that...
Maybe describe those styles.
I think that the styles are totally different. Like, it's like...
Which is great. That's why this book can be for anybody.
But it's like knowing you guys now, right? Like, I really know you both. So you're both totally different in real life, too. So Mandii loves a sentence that I had to chop up and be like, this is 5...
This is a paragraph.
This is 5 sentences. Like, I don't know what you're thinking here. And you love, like, outside of the box, like, funny things, but you also, like... You'll take it out of normal structure. You're like, now it's like a screenplay suddenly. And now I'm doing this. And now it's a text message. And what about this?
Stuff.
And what about that? And that was really, really fun for me because I like to write everything.
I really like dialogue when I'm reading. So
I do too.
I never thought I was gonna write it that way. And it's not like it's not in the other. So for example, what Tempest is saying is like more of Mandi's dialogue is actual quotations.
It's
He told
within,
me how he
yes.
was feeling.
Yes.
Whereas mine is like, this
It breaks
nigga
out.
told- and I'm breaking it out line by line. And I think really it's how we're telling stories in our head. I was really trying to describe it. Also how people like receiving storytelling from me on Horrible.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, okay, maybe I am jumping around a lot. Maybe I am doing this. So I want to not lose so much of the sauce, right? Like you don't want to change what works too much. And that's what I was fearful of with writing. But I'm glad that no one lost it.
No one lost it. And the greatest thing that we heard in any of the meetings with Simon and Schuster to me was when they were like, your voices are so different. Like, I don't have to look at whose name is at the top of this chapter to know whose chapter this is. And that was the main thing that I wanted to get across. I really wanted each of your voices to come through. And I think we really achieved that. And I'm so happy.
So we start this chapter by introducing us as podcasters. Then we break out for almost the rest of the book in an introduction of myself, an introduction of Wheezy. And then we've broken this book into 4 different parts. Pleasure, pain, progression, power. And I want to lean into each of those chapters or each of those segments just a little bit because we bring about themes in this book where you do have sex. We also included like a guide and ways to help you kind of navigate whatever journey you're in. And we have, let me do the math, 6, that's 18. We have about 18 different stories.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you've never experienced a non-monogamous relationship, you've experienced a heartbreak. If you haven't experienced trigger warning, if you haven't experienced a rape, maybe you've experienced an abortion.
Yes.
If you haven't experienced a throuple, maybe you've experienced just a one-off partner where y'all had threesomes. I think this book literally can relate to anybody at any time of their sexual journey and them trying to find confidence within themselves as a woman.
But I also
through
don't
all
think
of
you
the
need to
things.
relate. I think this book, and that's why I think for men it would be good too, it's good as a standalone. Like, without it being a guide. But some of the things that I haven't liked about why this book is going to be popular, I'm not a fan of self-help or guidebooks. I like the juicier storytelling thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that this book has that. And I'm glad we both got what we wanted because it really gives both. But I like that you still don't need the guidebook. If you have it all figured out in your life and you're listening and you're just
Said
like,
nobody ever.
they're
Yeah.
just, these girls are a goddamn mess and they're funny to listen to, then the book is still for you.
I was going to say, even if you like Housewives and like to read the mess of other people's lives,
Yeah.
it's all in here. Like I talk
It
about,
is.
and I think what was great about this was me tapping into my childhood and why I am the way I am today.
Yeah.
So, bitch, if y'all don't understand why the fuck I'm this motherfucking crazy
You'll know by the
nutso
end
with
of the
my
book.
own thoughts
Mhm.
on relationships, you'll know by the end of the book. So I did want to lean into pleasure because we start the book off that way because, there has to be fucking sex.
Can we say one thing though?
Yes.
Can we say that when we did the book proposal together, we had no idea that Simon and Schuster was going to tell us we want a prescriptive book. And
yeah, that's right.
remember, like we had a whole different idea. So then we did. Like we had a totally different book.
All I know is once I knew I could write my own chapters, therapy was going in this shit for me.
Oh, yes.
So to me, I don't think I would have done a book if there wasn't
I
a
think that
prescriptive
yours would have
element to
been
it.
naturally that way. And then I think you leaned into it at first kicking and screaming a little bit.
I think I was kicking and screaming though, because no offense, we don't have answers here, right?
Right.
This is a book where, and I knew that going into it, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that publishers and people wanted us to tell people what to do.
You know what's
How to
interesting?
fuck. I don't really like that.
I think you guys have more answers than you think.
I think we do from our own,
So much.
Yes.
right?
So
So
much.
for example, 2 different things, right? I would say a Shan Booty has the answers because she went to school to give them to you. She knows the
You
science
went to the
behind
school
some
of
things.
life.
And so
School
that's
of
2
life,
things, right?
baby.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
But it's why we don't have MDB. Like
No.
we have
We
nothing.
have no.
There's
yeah.
no
And so
medical.
when I brought up Shan just now, it's
you know.
really because I think it's been a great comp every time someone like compares. And when I say someone, it's normally when I'm talking like a TV network or someone that just kind of like is trying to figure out who we are. And I think what's so cool about this book is all of our reflection is us learning through our own fuck up. Like, this isn't something that we were like, oh, hey, yeah, we know that.
Which is how most of us learn.
Right.
Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that again.
So what my fear was initially with the kick and screams is that I hated thinking someone could pick up this book and felt like I was being preachy when, for a fact, right?
Yeah.
And so learning how the structure ended up coming together and seeing that it was really like unfolding at the bottom of every chapter, like, hey, like, now this is what you do. Almost as a horrible decision correction. I feel like when I used to describe horrible decisions formerly, right, was basically us sharing this crazy wild story and kind of reflecting on what we have done different. Maybe we were owning the whole thing. Whatever it was, it felt like it was coming together with this lesson learned.
Yeah.
And the book ended up having it. And it felt so natural.
I mean, I wanted to lean into pleasure while they're there. I know we talked about, can I put it back there? Because it's not preachy. So for that chapter specifically, I literally go chronologically from my homophobic views around anal sex and how I literally thought anal sex were just for two men and how no woman growing up had a really good experience about anal sex at all. It wasn't talked about. We didn't have the sexual education around it. So I go from literally being homophobic and I address my homophobia loud and clear.
You do.
Especially living in Atlanta early on with these views. To then me experiencing and allowing a man to have anal sex with me. It not being enjoyable first at all, but being open to experiencing it again. To eventually being called Peg the Stallion.
Yes.
And going from homophobia to bending niggas over. So it's literally, it's that type of chapter where I'm not going to be preaching to you. I'm addressing my own biases, my own ways of having to unlearn things, which is, I think, all we've said on this pod so long. We've all been taught so many things that we have to unlearn, especially in order to get the most out of sex. And so that chapter for me literally leans into telling you, I was doing research. I was pulling out statistics and all the things because I'm like, why are we taught this? Oh, well, when we're growing up in Black communities and leaning into the church, there's a strong sense of homophobia that exists, which is why anal sex is not discussed about the pleasures that it could be. And so it gives you like,
it hurts too,
a whole thing. I love it now. Give me anal sex, baby. Do not make that a clip, all right? But I love like experiencing pleasures in all my holes. Like if I could be fucked in the nose, I probably would like to experience
you said
it.
that because when your mom did our live show, that was what she said. Do you remember that?
She wants to be fucked in all of her orifices.
That's what she, and I was like,
all of my orifices, baby.
But that's how you know her mom's in the medical field. Orifices.
She said
orifices.
Yes. I'll never forget that. I was like, oh my God.
In every orifice, baby.
That was so
But
fucking funny.
So like, that chapter for me was one, we wrote that one fairly quickly.
Yeah, we did.
It wasn't until we had to get like a little deeper.
Barely got edited.
No, that one. And then ironically, so the next segment.
The way that you felt about it, they were like, yeah, us too.
They were like, ooh.